Welcome back, and thanks for joining me today for our second episode where we are comparing Mystcraft and RFTools. The last episode we kind of covered the details of RFTools, which, as you can see, is kind of a old-looking, kind of antique-y-looking thing. Well, RFTools is definitely a technology mod, whereas you can see we've got this cool blue, and actually that wood frame around it is something I did. I added that using micro blocks just to make it look a little bit better in the same room with RFTools. But the RFTools mod is kind of the Mystcraft mod is kind of a mysticism mod. There's lore behind it, and it's, I don't know, I guess you could say it's kind of a little bit magical, whereas RFTools is kind of based on an advanced dimension building technology. And that's what we're going to focus on today, all the while kind of comparing the process with that of Mystcraft that we talked about last time. So with RFTools, instead of pages like we had in Mystcraft, actually first of all let me talk about the teleportation engine. So in Mystcraft we had these linked books which can link us to spots in between dimensions. In RFTools we've got, and I've got them hidden under my carpet here, they actually do work under the carpet. We have these teleportation devices which actually will work within dimensions or between dimensions, so they're a little bit more flexible that way, but they do require RF. You can see this has got an RF buffer, and when you see, this is the matter receiver, which is the destination basically when you teleport. And then we have our matter transmitter, which is kind of the what would you call that? If that's a destination, this would be the source, I suppose you could say. And you can actually, I could actually teleport from there to there if I wanted to. We could. So we have this thing over here. It's called the dialing device. So we can tell our matter transmitter here which receiver to teleport us to. So we can have these receivers all over the place. We can have them in our other dimensions. We can even put them in our Mystcraft dimensions if we wanted to. We can put one in the Nether. We can put one over there in the power plant, wherever. We can put one in a village, anywhere we want, within this dimension, outside of this dimension, whatever. And we just go in here and we say, this is our base. I called it base. I actually gave it the name base. I'm sorry. Wait. Yeah. I called this transmitter base. So we select the transmitter up here, and we could actually have more than one transmitter in here, and they would all show up in this list. And then we select, we can select base, which is, I called the other one base too, and dial. Boom. It uses a little bit of RF, as you saw. And now we have this beam, which tells us that this matter transmitter is dialed. So right now it's dialed to that. So if I go here, it's going to try to teleport me over there, 2 blocks away. And it took a little bit of RF power. Not very much. It already replaced the... but the amount of RF that it takes is relative to how far away it is. So if I'm going into another dimension, it's going to use like over half of this. And if it runs out of RF, you'll die. Either, well, if there's very low RF, it'll just fail and it'll tell you can't teleport. There's not enough RF. But there's also the possibility of dying if the receiver doesn't have enough RF. And then this guy here, Destination Analyzer, is just a block that you put by the matter transmitter that changes the color of the beam. So the beam is green, which means that there's enough RF here, there's enough RF in the matter receiver, so it's safe. And it's also telling you, because it's green, it's telling you that the receiver is chunk loaded right now. Otherwise it would be yellow if the receiver was not chunk loaded. So if it was in a different dimension, or if it was far, far away, someplace where there was no chunk loader, then our beam would be yellow, which means it's safe, but that the destination is not chunk loaded. If it's red, that means that the receiver is not safe, so that it's run out of RF power, or perhaps the world itself ran out of power. So the other teleportation device, and I think this one is new because I don't remember seeing this previously when I had worked with RFTools in the past, but is this charged porter. This thing is freaking awesome. I love it. It is actually exactly the same as a matter transmitter. It does the same thing as a matter transmitter. You dial it in by right-clicking. So you take it in your hand and you right-click on the matter receiver, and it'll dial it, or is it shift right-click? Yeah, you dial it, and it said in the lower left, charge porter target is set to 1. That happens to be the ID of this particular matter transmitter. So now I can go anywhere in any dimension. And I can go in a Mystcraft dimension, I can go in the Nether, I can go in the Deep Dark, I can go in the Twilight Forest, I can go wherever, I can go 5,000 blocks this way, and no matter where I am, anywhere in Minecraft, if I right click on this thing, it takes me back here. That is so awesome. So no matter where you are or what you're doing, you could be down in the caves mining, you could be whatever, you could be exploring other dimensions, you could be in a boss, you could be fighting a boss in the Twilight Forest and realize that you've gotten in over your head, and boom, you're home. You're safe. That is so cool. So it's, you know, it's like a linked book where you can carry it with you, except of course you don't drop it, and it uses RF. So it's fully charged right now with 200,000 RF, and again, just like the matter transmitter, the further away you are, the more RF it's going to use. So if we go into, let's say we go into the Nether, whoa, it looks like a creeper blew up there. Well, anyway, so we go into the Nether, and we could go far away from our, I've got my little Mystcraft books here going to different places in the overworld, because you can use the Mystcraft books to go in between dimensions. So you could have, with the Mystcraft books, you could have like a little Grand Central Station in the Nether or in any other dimension other than the overworld, and have a whole bunch of linking books that go to different places throughout the overworld. That's one way that you could quickly teleport to different places throughout the overworld. Of course, with RFTools, you don't have to do that, because you can use you can go within the overworld, I mean within a dimension. Okay, I just can't not go after this guy. Come here. Oh, I don't want to kill you over the lava. Oh well, let's see if I can get, oh, it fell. Okay. Alright, anyway, so here I am, I'm over the lava, and I'm starting to teleport. Now as you can see, it took a heck of a lot of RF. So I'm down to 50,000. It actually took 150,000 RF to get me here. So I'll have to wait before I can do that again. And as it happens, I have a wireless charger here. It's got some advantages over the Mystcraft ones. The disadvantages, of course, are that it's more expensive. These machines all cost more, and they all require RF. So you're not going to be using these really early in the game. I mean, you're going to have your power system set, and you're going to have to be, you're going to need to be able to get resources to build these. Most of them require a lot of ender pearls. Like if we look at this charged porter, 4 ender pearls, a block of redstone, and 2 iron ingots. And of course, it'll only work if you have also the matter receiver, which is 3 iron ingots, a machine frame, 2 redstone, and 3 ender pearls. The process of creating dimensions in RFTools is somewhat similar. You have, instead of having the desk where you store your pages and then put them together here, and the bookbinder where you put together your stuff, you've got the dimension inscriber is kind of like the bookbinder. That's where you put all of your dimlets, which are the same as pages basically, and create your dimension. And then we've got this modular storage. Now the modular storage isn't necessarily specifically for dimension building, but it's pretty nice. It's nicer than a chest. This is another kind of a mid-game thing because it's not quite as nice for storage management as like applied energistics, but you've got this chest that can store up to 300 items depending on the type of storage module you put in it. There's 3 tiers. The first one is 100, 200, and 300 items that it'll store. But it also has this dimlet storage module which adds some nice features for storing modules. Like for instance, you can sort on dimlet type, and then it'll group them for you. So all that time that I spent, I mean, I probably spent an hour going through all these pages and sorting them, putting them in the right places. Here, this does it for me. It's already grouped for me. And when you get dimlets in the world, you can see I've already got all these dimlets, and let's see, let's just grab them all right away. I think they stack, yeah, they stack in 16. I've already done these 16, and I've got one here just for show. I thought it looked nice to have it sitting on the table there. All these dimlets I just got from mining. Most of them actually came in from my portal. I mean, from my BC Factory quarry, which will actually loot chests. And I only got a few. I think I had like maybe 4 or 5 Mystcraft pages that I actually collected in the overworld. So really, if you want to get Mystcraft pages, you really need to do one of 2 things. You need to get a dimension, I mean, create your, or actually they're called ages, I guess. Get your random dimension made, and then run around looking for libraries, or get a whole crap load of emeralds and go to a village and find yourself a Mystcraft dimlets and some crafting recipes. But their main use is to put in the dimlet researcher. So when you put a dimlet in the dimlet researcher, it actually ended up going in here. It randomly generates a so there's a biome, a poison effect, hardened clay, night sky. So all I have to do is just dump these guys in here, and it'll automatically dump them in this chest, and they'll be all sorted for me. So I'm gonna do that. Oh, and then we also have this dimlet scrambler, which if you have a couple of dimlets that you don't want, let's say you have, 25 of the same dimlet, and they're ones that you don't really care about, you can put them in the dimlet scrambler. You give it 3 dimlets, and it'll create a new random dimlet. Gives you a little bit more flexibility in dimlets. There's also actually some craftable dimlets that you can craft. Let's all these dimlets are craftable. So most of them are like default and normal stuff. So you can create a normal world just from crafting stuff, and you wouldn't even have to find dimlets in the world. Mobs. I'm not sure if you can do that in Mystcraft. I don't think you can. And we've got some sky options here. From what I can tell, Mystcraft gives you a lot more control over your suns, your celestials, your moons, suns, and that sort of thing, where with RFTools your configurations are a lot more limited. And I've also found that the controllers are basically what takes biomes. So these are biome controllers. Instead, what Mystcraft will do is it will use all your biomes, and it will distribute the biomes based on the biome distribution page that you use. And it gives you a lot of very fine control over the biomes. RFTools does it a little bit differently. With the filtered biomes, I mean, it has a bunch of preset controllers, and then it has the filtered controller, which basically what that'll do, it'll generate the world with a default biome distribution, but it will only include the biomes that you give it. It doesn't necessarily evenly distribute the biomes, and it will basically replace the default biomes with the closest one from your selection of biomes. So sometimes it becomes really hard to find some of the biomes that you've selected. Another difference is that dimlets cannot be copied. However, you can reuse the dimlets. And I'll show you how in just a second. So let's... Actually, why don't we first create a default world, even though we don't have to because we already have a bunch of dimlets, but just to show you basically the cost of creating a world. So we make this empty dimension tab, which is just 4 pieces of redstone, 5 pieces of paper. So again, it's probably a little easier to do this early in game with just the ink vials and paper and leather. Let's see. Okay, so we stick this guy in here, and we don't have to, a new world awaits. We don't have to give it any dimlets, and it'll give us a realized dimension tab. So we stick the realized dimension tab in our dimension builder, and then it'll start to build the world, which takes a certain amount of time, and the more complex the world is, the longer it takes. You can see it took a bunch of power to do that. It is now powering the world. So we can see maintenance costs 10 RF per tick. So this world is going to cost us 10 RF per tick. It's going to fill up a buffer. The dimension has a buffer that's currently being filled in this dimension builder. So the dimension builder does 2 things for us. It creates the dimension and then it powers it. So if we want to make sure that this dimension never runs out of power while we're in it, so let's say we're going to go there and spend a lot of time, we need 2 things. We need to keep this guy in the dimension builder. So if you want to have several dimensions being powered at once, you're going to need several dimension builders. And we need to make sure that this chunk is loaded. It is, of course. I have this area chunk loaded. But if it weren't, we would have to put up a chunk loader here. Otherwise, as soon as we enter this dimension, it would start draining power out of its reserve. Okay, so the dimension actually has a buffer of 40 million RF, which it's still filling up. While we're waiting, actually we don't even have to wait for that. There's plenty of power in that dimension. But I do want to mention one other thing. Okay, so now we're going back to our dialer here. We're selecting our base teleporter or matter transmitter, and we're selecting this one, which is in the world ID 4. And we're going to dial. So it's yellow because of our destination analyzer, which tells us that it's safe to teleport, but it's not chunk loaded, which is fine. One other quick thing I want to mention comparing the 2 mods is about documentation. Mystcraft has a wiki which has a lot of really good information in it about pretty much about every single page, and kind of going over all of the different things that we talked about and other things in much more detail. It talks about the grammar of how to create a world and make it stable. It talks about which pages are which pages cause stability, which pages cause instability, and that sort of thing. RFTools also has a wiki, which I found to be not quite as detailed as the Mystcraft wiki, but it also has these in-game books. Actually, let's just go in here. We've got the RFTools manual, which talks about all of the machines in the RFTools mod, whether those be having to do with dimension building or not. And then we have this dimension manual, which it's a really good idea to read this thing because it's got information about a lot of stuff that's actually not in the wiki is in this book. So we're just talking about how to build dimensions, and talks about the grammar of putting the dimlets together, which I'm going to talk about really briefly, but not in detail. Okay, so now we can go into our dimension. Once again, We don't know what we're getting into here. This could be a very hostile environment. It could be a void. It could be, we have no idea. However, one thing we do know is that it's not going to be unstable, because there is no such thing as instability in RFTools like there is in Mystcraft. Worlds that would be unstable in Mystcraft just cost more RF in RFTools. So here we go. Let's get our sword ready. There's one thing I didn't mention before I came here that's really important. Again, just like with with Mystcraft, make sure that when you go to a dimension, you have a way of getting back. Normally, you would create yourself a matter transmitter, but since I already have this charged porter, I always, no matter where I go, I have a way back. But of course, it's not always necessarily going to be the case. So usually, make sure that you have a charge porter or a matter transmitter and a way to power it. Because now this guy, we took a little bit of RF getting here. It had a buffer, and it actually, okay, so when you generate a new RFTools dimension, it automatically gives you this matter receiver and a couple glowstone blocks and this blue stained clay platform. You like in, wait, we're really high up. Now, unlike Mystcraft, if you die in an RFTools dimension, you will end up at in the overworld spawn. You do not end up respawning in your dimension, where Mystcraft you do. If you die in a Mystcraft dimension, you will respawn in that dimension, so you cannot get out of a Mystcraft dimension by dying. But you can get out of a RFTools dimension by dying. This is what I was looking for. So this is a I forgot what it's called, but it's basically the equivalent to the Mystcraft library. We've got 3 dimlets on the wall. Whoops. And these are already, they're not unknown dimlets, so they actually already have values. So we've got coal ore, we've got, ooh, warm dimlet. That's a biome controller, so that's basically going to create a world with warm biomes like tropical rainforests, and we've got the Mushroom Island. Then we've got a bunch of unknown dimlets and a couple more weather hard thunder dimlet, and then the biome mesa dimlet. So it's basically same thing as Mystcraft, except in a different style. So I just mined my way down to level 95. And I found an underwater ocean. Look at that. Oh wait, let me turn my night vision on. Look at that. Oh, I still can't see for crap. That's crazy. Oh, I'm lagging. Wow, look at that. Isn't that cool? I just found a huge oil reservoir. Check this out. It goes way down there. In this whole area. Man, that is a lot of oil. I want to explore more, but I'm gonna die if I if I stay down there too long. Get out! Okay. Oh, I have like 24 hearts anyway. I'm definitely coming back here and setting up a pump here. These things are everywhere. I just looted one over there, I looted this one, and I look over here and there's 2 more. Crazy. Right. So I can right click this guy, and of course I could also use a Mystcraft link book to get out of here. Or I could kill myself. But I'm just going to use this charged porter. If I use a Mystcraft book, I don't have to use RF. There, we're back, just like that. I love that. And again, we used about 150,000 RF. Let's interrupt this just to make sure we don't accidentally step on it. And it might be a good idea not to put this thing right in the middle of your workspace, because it has happened before where I've stepped on these things and ended up being teleported when I didn't want to. Or ended up just using a bunch of RF. If you walk across it, it'll start to draw power getting ready for the teleportation, but if you step off of it before the teleportation completes, it will use up a bunch of RF. And if you don't have much, that can be a pretty big deal. We can search, so if we want to find tropics, there's our tropical biome. So it's going to be a lot easier for us to put together a cool world in here in less time. And the other thing that you can do here that you can't do with Mystcraft is you can automate the sorting. So I've got this thing hooked into my item network, so that all the dimlets are coming into this chest whenever they get dropped in my ender pouch, and then the unknown dimlets get extracted out of here, put into the dimlet researcher, analyzed, and then they're sent back into the other chest. So everything is being dimlet processing is completely automated now. All we have to do is, from anywhere in the in this or any dimension, we just drop our dimlets in the ender pouch, and they'll automatically get put into here, where we can work with them quite easily. Although we already have 204 out of 300, so we may have to expand our modular storage, which is just fine. Okay, so we've got our empty dimension tab in here already, and I have a few dimlets. I am leaving a lot to chance once again, but I'm starting out with a filtered controller, which means that whatever biomes I specify are the only biomes that are going to appear in the world. We'll take a bright day, default mobs. Oh, that's expensive, 300 RF per tick. You know what, let's not. Then we're going to have liquid lakes. And default materials in a nearlands terrain. Nearlands is, I guess it's a normal kind of flatter terrain near spawn, and then as you move away from it, it becomes more amplified. So that's it. So we're going to store these in our dimension tab, and it's telling us that it's going to be, wow, 3,566 RF per tick. The creation cost. It's going to take 316 ticks to create, and then the maintenance cost is going to be 64 RF per tick. So if we look at each dimlet, you'll see that it shows you right away the creation cost is what the creation cost is going to be. Like this one is 300 RF per tick. The maintenance cost is 100 RF per tick, which means once the world is created, this will add 100 RF per tick to the world, and the tick cost is how long is it going to take to generate the world. So this particular one will add 200 ticks to the time it takes to generate the world in our realized dimension tab. I mean, in our dimension builder. So if I take this guy out, this dimension will continue to exist, and it'll continue to use power. So you can see that the current power buffer is dropping, which is fine. We're not there anymore. If this dimension runs out of power, it's not a big deal because we're not even there. But if we want to keep this dimension running, we're going to have another dimension builder. And we could actually still go in this world until it runs out of RF. And we'll want to take a dimension monitor with us. And what this will do is it'll tell us how much RF is in the current dimension that we're in. Dial it, and again our beam is yellow, meaning that it's safe to go in there. Now before we go, we want to make sure we have a way to get back. I think I put it Yeah, there's our charged porter. Gonna keep that there. Actually, let's throw this back in here and start teleportation. Oh boy. I didn't specify any of the celestials, so it looks like we have a pretty normal sun. And we specified ocean and tropics. There's our tropics. Here's our ocean. So the tropics were, I guess, far enough away from spawn that they're amplified. So the nearlands amplified terrain actually seems to be pretty close to spawn. Definitely not what I would call a tropical paradise, but it's interesting anyway. Nice. We've got a nice cyan colored sky, it looks like, with the fog is a slightly different color though too. It looks like it's kind of a almost a pinkish. No, I don't know what that color is, but it's a little different than what you would normally see. Oh, I'm not about to die. You know what? That sun is not moving. So once again, we got lucky with our. We have an eternal day. Our realized dimensional tab out of there. Put it in here. We can actually deconstruct it and get all of our dimlets back and use them to create a completely different world, which is pretty cool. The one problem with it though, and that world still continues to exist, so if we go here we'll see that it's still here, but it's not being powered. So eventually it'll run out of power and die. However, if we generate another dimension with these exact same dimlets, it will point to the exact same dimension. So if you do take these dimlets out and make another dimension, you just need to make sure that you remember, if you ever want to reconstruct this dimension or go back to this dimension, you'll need to remember exactly what Mystcraft, because in Mystcraft, if you create two different dimensions with the exact same pages, you're going to end up with two exactly different dimensions. Exactly different? You're going to end up with two different dimensions with the same features. Whereas in RFTools, you're going to end up going back to the exact same dimension. And I mean, for instance, if we do another empty dimension like we did here, without any dimlets, it's going to take us back to the same place. So if you actually want to create a different dimension with the exact same dimlets, you're going to need one of these digits. These digit dimlets will change the it'll change the dimension because it'll be adding another dimlet. The digit dimlets do not do any they don't change anything. They don't add any features. They don't change anything about the description of the dimension, but they will make it a different dimension so that it'll go back to someplace different. I hope you enjoyed this and will join me next time when I am going to do a little showdown with these two mods. I'm going to pit them against each other in order to create the ultimate vacation destination dimension, which I am then going to build a vacation house in. And I'm really looking forward to that, so I hope you'll join me for that next time. And if you did enjoy this, please click that like button. And if you have any comments, suggestions, ideas, or whatever, please leave them below. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.